Benjamin Franklin is remembered today as a man of many titles: founding father, inventor, diplomat, writer, philosopher, and even humorist. But long before he became a symbol of American wisdom and ingenuity, Franklin began as a poor boy in a crowded Boston household, one of 17 children. His story of rising from humble beginnings to international fame is one of the most remarkable journeys in history. It is why many call him the most interesting man in American history. Childhood. In Boston, Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17, 1706, in Boston, Massachusetts Bay Colony. His father, Josiah Franklin, was a candlemaker and soap maker, and his mother, Abia Folger, was Josiah's second wife. With so many siblings, the Franklin household was noisy, crowded, and constantly in motion. Young Benjamin grew up in an environment where work was a necessity, discipline was constant, and opportunities were scarce. From the beginning, Franklin was curious. He loved books, but books were expensive, and with so many mouths to feed, his father could not afford formal schooling for long. Franklin attended school only until the age of 10, after which he was pulled out to work in the family business. For 2 years, he dipped wicks and poured wax, but young Benjamin hated the trade. He disliked the smell, the routine, and the lack of intellectual challenge. He wanted more. Josiah soon recognized Benjamin's lack of enthusiasm for candlemaking and decided to apprentice him to another trade. At the age of 12, Benjamin was bound as an apprentice to his older brother James, who ran a printing shop. This proved to be a turning point in his life. The printing trade was demanding, involving heavy lifting, long hours, and tedious work. But unlike soap making, printing gave Franklin access to something he craved: books and ideas. The print shop produced newspapers, pamphlets, and books, and young Benjamin devoured every word he could get his hands on. Franklin began to secretly borrow books late at night, reading by candlelight. He taught himself grammar, improved his vocabulary, studied essays from writers such as Addison and Steele, carefully imitating their style. Though James was a talented printer, he was harsh and often dismissive of his younger brother. Franklin, however, soon began to test his own talents. He wanted to write, not just read. At 16, Franklin attempted to contribute to his brother's newspaper, the New England Courant. Knowing James would never take his writing seriously, Franklin devised a clever trick. He wrote a series of humorous letters under the pseudonym Silence Dog, a fictional widow with sharp wit and strong opinions. Each letter was slipped under the print shop door at night. To James's surprise, the mysterious Silence Doggood became a hit with readers. Her witty observations on society, education, and politics brought attention to the paper. When Franklin's identity was eventually revealed, James was furious. Not impressed, the quarrels between the brothers worsened. James's temper, combined with Franklin's growing independence, led to escalating conflict. Finally, after years of tension, Franklin made a bold decision. In 1723, at just 17 years old, Franklin broke his apprenticeship and secretly left Boston. This was risky by law. He was still bound to his brother until age 21. But Franklin's ambition and hunger for freedom drove him to take the chance. He set out alone, with only a few coins in his pocket and little more than the clothes he wore. He boarded a boat to New York, hoping to find work as a printer. But New York offered few opportunities. Determined not to give up, he continued to Philadelphia, which would soon become his lifelong home. The journey was exhausting. Franklin later described his arrival in Philadelphia with characteristic humor. A tired, dirty young man carrying a few rolls of bread under his arms as he walked through the streets. Had no connections, no wealth, and no plan beyond survival. Yet this shabby young runaway would one day become one of the most admired men in the world. What made Franklin's early years remarkable was not wealth, privilege or education, but his determination. He had tasted hardship, experienced conflict, and learned to rely on himself. The boy who once dipped candles in Boston would soon print newspapers, spark revolutions, and electrify the world literally. This first chapter of Franklin's life set the tone for everything that followed: resourcefulness, humor, ambition, and resilience. In Philadelphia, he would begin to shape himself into not just a skilled tradesman, but a thinker, writer, and ultimately a leader. When Benjamin Franklin stepped into Philadelphia at 17, he looked more like a beggar than a future statesman. His clothes were dirty, his pockets nearly empty, and the rolls of bread he clutched under his arms gave him the awkward appearance of a runaway with no place to go. Yet within a few short years, he would rise from obscurity to become one of the most successful printers in the colonies. Rise that owed as much to his wit and ambition as to his hard work. Philadelphia in the early 1720s was bustling but still provincial. The city had grown rapidly, with merchants, artisans, and printers competing for success. Franklin, determined to find work, quickly located a printing house run by Samuel Kemmer. Kemmer was eccentric and disorganized, but Franklin's skills impressed him. He was soon hired to work as a compositor, setting type and managing the press. Franklin's intelligence and reliability stood out immediately. Though still just a teenager, he displayed the confidence and maturity of someone far older. His diligence also attracted the attention of prominent Philadelphians, including the influential merchant Sir William Keith, who would later play an important role in Franklin's career. Keats encouraged Franklin to start his own printing business, and even promised financial backing. Enthusiastic, Franklin trusted him. At Keith's urging, he sailed to London in 1724, expecting to receive the promised funds. But when Franklin arrived, he discovered that Keith had deceived him. The financial support never existed. Stranded in London, Franklin had to fend for himself. For nearly 2 years, he worked in various printing houses, improving his craft and gaining valuable experience. London broadened his perspective, exposing him to Enlightenment thought, advanced printing techniques, and the lively debates of coffee houses. Though the trip had begun with disappointment, Franklin turned it into an education in independence and resilience. By 1726, he returned to Philadelphia, more skilled and more determined than ever. Back in Philadelphia, Franklin rejoined Kemmer's shop, but their partnership was doomed by Kemmer's incompetence. In 1728, Franklin and a friend, Hugh Meredith, decided to open their own printing business. They purchased equipment, rented a small space, and began competing for clients. The young printer's talent quickly became clear. Franklin combined technical excellence with shrewd marketing. He worked long hours, producing high-quality pamphlets, broadsides, and books. His careful attention to detail earned him respect, while his natural charm helped him win customers. By 1729, Franklin had acquired the Pennsylvania Gazette, a struggling newspaper. Under his leadership, it became one of the most successful and widely read papers in the colonies. Franklin infused it with sharp wit, political commentary, and clever advertisements. He wasn't afraid to use satire to criticize local authorities, or to poke fun at human folly. Readers loved it, and the Gazette soon made Franklin a household name in Philadelphia. Franklin's most famous publishing venture, however, began in 1732. Poor Richard's Almanac. Written under the pseudonym Richard Saunders, the almanac was filled with proverbs, practical advice, and humor. Franklin had a genius for short, memorable sayings that captured wisdom in a few words. Phrases such as, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. A penny saved is a penny earned. Lost time is never found again." These maxims resonated deeply with colonists who valued thrift, hard work, and common sense. The almanac became wildly popular, selling thousands of copies each year for more than 2 decades. Beyond its commercial success, it shaped American identity, reinforcing values that would define the emerging nation. Asterisk by the mid-1730s. Franklin was not just a printer, but a respected citizen of Philadelphia. His print shop was thriving, his newspaper influential, and his almanac beloved. He had achieved what few thought possible for a runaway apprentice. He had built wealth, influence, and independence from nothing. But Franklin was never content with success alone. Unlike many businessmen who focused solely on profit, Franklin saw printing as a tool to improve society. He believed that ideas should circulate freely, that knowledge should be shared, and that communities should be strengthened. Through learning, these beliefs would soon lead him beyond printing into public service and invention. By the end of this stage of his life, Franklin had transformed from a runaway boy carrying loaves of bread into one of Philadelphia's leading printers and thinkers. He had weathered betrayal in London, hardship in Philadelphia, and fierce competition in business, yet through his persistence, wit, and relentless curiosity, he carved out a reputation as both a man of letters and a man of action. The printing press had given him a voice, and with it, Franklin was ready to shape the world. The stage was set for his next chapter as scientist, inventor, and civic leader. Benjamin Franklin had achieved success as a printer, writer, and thinker by the early 1730s. But his restless mind was not satisfied with fame or wealth alone. He was driven by an insatiable curiosity, a desire to understand the natural world, and an almost playful fascination with experiments. Franklin's contributions to science and invention would not only influence his contemporaries, they would echo through centuries. Franklin's interest in science began with simple observations. He was fascinated by the behavior of electricity, the movement of air, and the principles of heat and water. His home in Philadelphia doubled as a workshop and laboratory, filled with instruments, glass tubes, and handwritten notes. Franklin's approach to science was methodical, yet practical. Unlike some academics of his era, he sought experiments that had real-world applications. He didn't study nature purely for theory, he studied it to improve life. This practical mindset would define many of his inventions. Franklin's most famous experiment came in 1752, when he sought to prove that lightning was a form of electricity. According to popular legend, Franklin flew a kite during a thunderstorm, with a metal key attached to the string. When the lightning passed, the key became electrified, confirming that lightning and electricity were the same phenomenon. The story of Franklin's kite has become legendary, symbolizing both daring and ingenuity. Yet Franklin approached it with caution. He devised a method to collect and observe electricity without endangering himself. The experiment, whether in its exact form or through iterations, was a milestone in the study of electricity. This discovery led to one of Franklin's most practical inventions, the lightning rod. By installing metal rods on buildings to divert lightning safely to the ground, Franklin protected homes, churches, and public buildings from fire. This simple yet revolutionary device saved countless lives and property, demonstrating Franklin's unique blend of curiosity and practicality. Franklin's creativity extended far beyond electricity. Among his notable inventions, bifocal glasses. Tired of switching between 2 pairs of glasses, Franklin designed lenses that combined near and far vision in a single frame, a solution still used today. The Franklin stove, an innovative heating stove that radiated more heat while using less fuel, making homes warmer and safer. Glass harmonica. Franklin experimented with music, inventing an instrument made of spinning glass bowls that produced hauntingly beautiful tones. Odometer and flexible catheter. Early prototypes of devices to measure distance and aid medical care, showing his interest in everyday utility. Each invention shared a common theme: It solved a problem, improved daily life, or revealed it deeper. Truth about nature. Franklin's brilliance was not just an invention, but in identifying what mattered most to people and society. Asterisk alongside experimentation. Franklin wrote extensively on scientific topics. His essays on electricity were published in Europe and America, earning him international acclaim. Fellow scientists, including members of the Royal Society in London, recognized Franklin as one of the foremost thinkers of his era. But Franklin's curiosity extended beyond electricity. He studied ocean currents, meteorology, and the properties of air. He developed theories about storms and weather patterns and collected data on temperature and wind. His meticulous observations laid the groundwork for future scientists and reflected his dedication to evidence and logic. Asterisk what set Franklin apart was his insatiable self-education. He was largely self-taught, yet he approached learning systematically. He kept detailed notebooks, recorded experiments, and challenged himself to improve daily. Franklin's famous plan for moral and intellectual self-improvement, list of virtues and habits he aimed to cultivate revealed a man who believed mastery over oneself was as important as mastery over the natural world. His approach was playful, yet disciplined. Franklin once wrote that an experiment should be simple, cheap, and fruitful, reflecting his belief that knowledge was most valuable when it served people's lives, not just curiosity. Asterisk by the 1750s, Franklin had achieved international fame as a scientist. His work on electricity influenced European research, and his inventions had practical impact in the American colonies. More than fame, Franklin had earned respect as a thinker whose mind combined imagination, precision, and utility. In many ways, this period of his life exemplified why Franklin was the most interesting man. He was not only exploring the mysteries of the world, but also inventing tools to make life better. His experiments in electricity, heating, and vision demonstrated an extraordinary ability to bridge theory and practice, an approach that would define the rest of his life. Asterisk Franklin's scientific curiosity soon expanded beyond his home and workshop. He began to see parallels between improving nature and improving society. Just as a lightning rod could protect a building, thoughtful civic planning could protect and empower communities. This mindset would lead him into public service, laying the foundation for his next chapter, a civic leader, reformer, and builder of institutions. Asterisk while Benjamin Franklin's experiments and inventions brought him fame, it was his commitment to improving society that revealed another side of his brilliance. Franklin believed that a thriving community was as important as individual success, and he dedicated himself to civic leadership, laying foundations for institutions that would endure for centuries. Asterisk in 1736, Franklin helped organize Philadelphia's Union Fire Company, the city's first volunteer firefighting group. Fires were a constant threat in 18th-century cities, with wooden houses and open flames making disaster nearly inevitable. Franklin recognized that individual households could not prevent large fires on their own. His solution was simple yet revolutionary. Citizens should band together, share resources, and respond collectively. Franklin not only helped organize the company, but also wrote manuals, created signals for fire alarms, and promoted public safety campaigns. The Union Fire Company became a model for volunteer fire brigades across America. Franklin's idea of civic responsibility, neighbors working together for the common good, was a hallmark of his public philosophy. Asterisk Franklin's commitment to knowledge extended beyond his personal thirst for learning. In 1731, he founded the Library Company of Philadelphia, the first lending library in America. Before this, books were rare, expensive, and largely inaccessible. Franklin's library allowed ordinary citizens to borrow books, access new ideas, and educate themselves. membership was affordable, and the library became a hub of intellectual activity. Franklin believed that knowledge should circulate freely, reflecting the same spirit that drove his printing and publishing work. Education, he realized, was a civic responsibility. By empowering citizens with information, communities could prosper, and society could improve. Franklin's vision of civic duty extended to healthcare. Alongside Dr. Thomas Bond, he helped establish the Pennsylvania Hospital in 1751, the first hospital in the American colonies. Franklin understood that access to medical care was vital for a healthy, productive society. He was involved not only in fundraising, but in planning the hospital's operations and structure. Franklin saw the institution as more than a building. It was a symbol of collective effort and compassion, reflecting his lifelong belief that communities thrive when people work together for the common good. Franklin's civic work didn't stop with institutions. He advocated for improved streets, street lighting, and public sanitation. He developed a street lighting system in Philadelphia, using oil lamps to illuminate city streets at night. This reduced crime and accidents, making the city safer and more livable. Franklin also contributed to postal reforms, helping establish an efficient mail system that connected distant towns and facilitated communication. This was no small achievement. In a time when mail delivery could take weeks, Franklin's innovations brought people together and strengthened the social fabric. Throughout his life, Franklin championed a practical philosophy. Personal success should be paired with public service. He believed in morality, frugality, hard work, and community-mindedness. His writings encouraged individuals to improve themselves while also improving society. In essays, letters, and pamphlets, Franklin stressed that educated, virtuous citizens were essential for a functioning republic. His motto for civic life was simple: well-being of the community enhances the well-being of the individual. By the 1750s, Franklin had become Philadelphia's preeminent civic leader. His influence extended beyond science and business into the very fabric of urban life. Citizens admired him not only for his intelligence, but for his willingness to act, whether founding libraries, hospitals, or fire companies. Franklin's public service illustrated a powerful principle: leadership is not about authority alone, but about initiative, responsibility, and vision. He taught that one person, driven by curiosity and compassion, could transform the life of an entire city. Franklin's civic work laid the groundwork for his later political career. His skill in organizing communities, promoting public welfare, and building institutions became essential when he entered diplomacy and statesmanship. In short, Franklin's Philadelphia was a laboratory, not just for scientific experiments, but for experiments in society itself. The lessons he learned in civic leadership would guide him in shaping a nation just as surely as his scientific discoveries had influenced the understanding of the natural world. By the 1750s, Benjamin Franklin had established himself as a respected printer, inventor, scientist, and civic leader in Philadelphia. Yet, his ambitions extended far beyond the city streets. Franklin was beginning to see the broader world of politics and diplomacy, a realm where his intellect, wit, and charm could make a lasting impact. In 1757, Franklin was appointed as a colonial representative to London, tasked with negotiating on behalf of Pennsylvania and other colonies. At the time, tensions between the American colonies and Britain were growing over taxes, governance, and colonial rights. Franklin's mission was both delicate and critical. To protect colonial interests while maintaining favor with the British government, London was dazzling and intimidating. The city was a center of power, culture, and intellect. Franklin quickly impressed the British elite with his intelligence, humor, and clear thinking. He mingled with scientists, politicians, and writers, earning a reputation as a brilliant mind. From the New World, Franklin's role was far from easy. Colonial representatives often struggled to be heard, and British officials were sometimes dismissive or outright hostile. Franklin faced bureaucracy, skepticism, and personal attacks. Yet he remained calm, tactful, and strategic. He used his wit as a diplomatic tool, writing letters and essays that cleverly criticized unfair policies while maintaining a veneer of politeness. Franklin's writings from this period reflect a keen understanding of human, nature, and political nuance skills that would serve him well in the coming revolutionary era. Franklin was a master of subtle persuasion. He often employed satire and humor to highlight injustices and absurdities in British policy. One famous example was his critique of the Stamp Act and other tax measures, where he combined logical argumentation with biting wit. His goal was to influence opinion both in London and back in the colonies, using the power of words as effectively as the power of diplomacy. Despite the challenges, Franklin formed relationships with influential figures, including members of the Royal Society, politicians, and fellow thinkers. These connections gave him insight into British governance and the workings of power. They also positioned him as a credible voice for colonial interests. Franklin's diplomacy extended beyond politics. He shared his scientific discoveries, engaged in philosophical debates, and contributed to cultural exchanges. His ability to move seamlessly between science, culture, and politics earned him admiration and helped bridge gaps between the colonies and the British elite. Over time, Franklin grew increasingly frustrated with British policies toward the colonies. Laws imposed without local consent, trade restrictions, and taxation created tension that Franklin could not ignore. His experiences in London revealed both the strengths and limitations of British governance, shaping his ideas about self-rule and independence. Yet Franklin remained strategic. He understood that rash action could backfire. He carefully documented injustices, cultivated allies, and prepared for the possibility of a larger conflict, one that would eventually culminate in the American Revolution. Franklin's years in London illustrate his remarkable ability to navigate two worlds at once. He was an American, loyal to his colony, yet he operated effectively within the heart of the British Empire. This duality required intellect, patience, and charm. Franklin's diplomatic skill lay in knowing when to push, when to compromise, and how to win support without burning bridges. By the mid-1760s, Franklin's perspective had shifted. While he initially hoped for reconciliation and fair treatment of the colonies, he began to see that independence might be inevitable. His work in London had taught him the limits of diplomacy with an inflexible government, and he started to prepare for his most crucial role yet, representing America on the world stage during its fight for independence. Franklin's London years were a crucible. They tested his patience, sharpened his intellect, and honed his skills as a negotiator. These experiences would prove invaluable as he transitioned from civic leader and scientist into statesman and revolutionary diplomat. By 1776, the American colonies had declared independence from Britain, and Benjamin Franklin, now an elder statesman of 70, was called upon for a mission that would define his legacy, representing the fledgling United States in France, one of the most powerful nations. In Europe, his charm, intellect, and reputation as a scientist and diplomat made him the perfect envoy to secure alliances, loans, and support for the revolutionary cause. Franklin arrived in Paris in December 1776 to a city brimming with intellectuals, artists, and aristocrats. France had long been a rival of Britain, and Franklin recognized that French support could tip the balance in favor of the American colonies. He quickly adapted to the sophisticated social scene, mastering French customs and using his wit to captivate high society. Unlike the stern, formal diplomats of the time, Franklin's folk charm, simple dress, and reputation as an inventor made him a sensation. He became a celebrity in salons, where philosophers, scientists, and noblewomen were fascinated by the elderly American who could both discuss electricity and critique British politics. Asterisk. One of Franklin's greatest achievements in Paris was the negotiation of the Franco-American alliance in 1778. France agreed to provide military aid, loans, and resources crucial for the American fight against Britain. This alliance was a game-changer, providing ships, soldiers, and supplies that helped the colonies sustain their struggle. Franklin's success was not just political, it was personal diplomacy. He used humor, tact, and intelligence to win trust, appealing to French pride and their rivalry with Britain. He demonstrated that the American cause was both just and strategically advantageous for France. Asterisk. Despite his celebrity, Franklin faced constant challenges. Britain actively tried to undermine him, spreading rumors and attempting to sway French opinion. Managing finances, securing military support, and coordinating with American leaders across the Atlantic was a monumental task. Franklin's calm, methodical approach allowed him to navigate complex negotiations and maintain credibility on all fronts. Asterisk. In Paris, Franklin's influence extended beyond politics. He became a symbol of American ingenuity and virtue. Artists painted his portrait, and philosophers cited his writings. Franklin engaged in scientific discussions, experiments, and intellectual debates, embodying the Enlightenment ideals that resonated with French thinkers. His folk persona, bifocals, simple dress, and plain demeanor contrasted with the grandeur of French aristocracy. This made him approachable, respected, and admired, bridging cultures while advocating for revolutionary ideals. Asterisk. Securing French military aid was only part of Franklin's mission. Funding a revolution required enormous resources. Franklin negotiated loans from French banks and wealthy individuals, ensuring the Continental Army could pay soldiers, purchase supplies, and sustain campaigns. These financial efforts were as critical as battlefield victories and showcased Franklin's practical genius in diplomacy and strategy. Asterisk. Franklin's charisma extended to friendships with influential figures, including King Louis XVI, Queen Marie Antoinette, and leading intellectuals. He cultivated relationships that were strategic yet genuine, blending diplomacy with personal charm. These connections helped maintain France's commitment to the American cause even during difficult moments of the war. Asterisk. Franklin's diplomatic efforts culminated in the Treaty of Paris 1783, which formally ended the Revolutionary War. The treaty recognized the United States as an independent nation, secured borders, and laid the foundation for peaceful relations with Britain. Franklin's role was pivotal. His negotiations, charm, and strategic foresight ensured American interests were protected and respected. Asterisk. Franklin's time in Paris cemented his reputation as one of history's most effective and beloved diplomats. He proved that intelligence, wit, and humanity could achieve what force alone could not. Beyond treaties and loans, Franklin built bridges between cultures, showcased American ideals abroad, and secured the survival of the revolutionary experiment. The Paris years transformed Franklin from a colonial statesman into a global figure, admired for his wisdom, humor, and unwavering commitment to liberty. After nearly a decade in France, Benjamin Franklin returned to the United States in 1785, hailed as a hero of the Revolution and a symbol of American diplomacy. Now in his late 70s, Franklin's mind remained sharp, his humor undiminished, and his commitment to the fledgling nation unwavering. Asterisk. Franklin arrived in Philadelphia to an outpouring of public admiration. Crowds gathered to catch a glimpse of the man who had not only helped secure independence, but also built bridges with European powers. Newspapers celebrated his achievements, artists painted his portrait, and citizens honored him with ceremonies and banquets. Despite the adulation, Franklin remained humble and witty, often joking about his age and eccentricities. He delighted in interacting with people from all walks of life, reinforcing his image as the people's statesman and bridging gaps between social classes. Franklin's influence extended into the formation of the United States Constitution. Though elderly, he attended the Constitutional Convention in 1787, offering guidance, compromise, and humor to ease tensions among delegates. His famous remark during the convention reflected both pragmatism and wisdom. "I confess that I do not entirely approve of this Constitution at present, but, sir, I am not sure I shall never approve it." Franklin's presence lent credibility and moral authority to the debates, and his efforts helped encourage unity among the diverse and often fractious states. Even in his final years, Franklin remained an advocate for social reform, education, and civic responsibility. He promoted the abolition of slavery, arguing against the inhumanity of the institution. Though he recognized the practical challenges of immediate change, Franklin also continued to support scientific inquiry and innovation. He corresponded with inventors, philosophers, and scientists around the world, emphasizing the value of knowledge, experimentation, and reason. Franklin's personal life in these years was quieter but filled with reflection and correspondence. He maintained close relationships with his children and grandchildren, offering guidance and wisdom. His letters reveal a man at peace with his life, proud of his accomplishments, and conscious of the world's ongoing challenges. He reflected on themes of liberty, education, science, and civic virtue, leaving behind advice for future generations. The importance of learning, the value of humility, and the necessity of compromise in building a lasting society. Benjamin Franklin passed away on April 17, 1790, at the age of 84. His funeral in Philadelphia was attended by thousands, from ordinary citizens to political leaders. Tributes poured in from around the world, honoring a man who had shaped not only American independence, but also global diplomacy and intellectual thought. Franklin's legacy is multifaceted: inventor, scientist, philosopher, diplomat, writer, and revolutionary. His contributions laid the foundations of modern American society and inspired countless generations to value reason, innovation, and civic responsibility. Franklin's life demonstrates the power of curiosity, wit, and diplomacy. His inventions, writings, and political achievements continue to influence science, literature, and governance, from the lightning rod to the Declaration of Independence. From Paris salons to the Constitutional Convention, Franklin's blend of intellect, humor, and humanity ensured that he would be remembered as one of the most compelling figures in history. Truly, the most interesting man in American history. Benjamin Franklin was not only a founding father and diplomat, but also a brilliant inventor and scientist. His insatiable curiosity about the natural world and practical problems led him to create tools and conduct experiments that would leave a lasting impact on science and everyday life. Franklin's fascination with the natural world began in childhood. He read widely, experimented freely, and constantly questioned the way things worked. By his teenage years, he had already started conducting experiments in electricity, meteorology, and mechanics. Blending observation with creativity, he famously carried out experiments with lightning and electricity. Believing that natural phenomena could be understood, measured, and harnessed for human benefit. Perhaps Franklin's most famous experiment was the kite experiment of 1752, in which he flew a kite during a thunderstorm to demonstrate that lightning was a form of tate. Was a form of his most practical inventions. The lightning rod. Installed atop buildings, the rod provided a safe path for electrical discharge. protecting homes, churches, and ships from fire and destruction. Beyond this, Franklin's writings on electricity, including terms such as positive and negative charge, influenced the development of modern electrical theory. Other notable inventions, bifocals, frustrated with constantly switching between lenses for reading and distance. Franklin created bifocal glasses, which allowed for both near and far vision in a single pair. Franklin's stove, concerned about inefficient and smoky fireplaces. Franklin designed a metal stove that provided better heat output with less wood, improving both safety and comfort in homes. Odometer. While traveling as a postmaster, Franklin devised a simple odometer to measure the distance covered by his postal routes, aiding in efficiency and planning. Flexible catheter and other practical devices. Franklin's inventiveness extended to medical instruments, household items, and even musical innovations, reflecting his belief that science should improve everyday life. Franklin's contributions were not limited to inventions. He was deeply engaged in scientific societies and correspondence across Europe and America. His work in meteorology, oceanography, and population studies demonstrated a holistic understanding of the world. Meteorology. Franklin charted ocean currents, including the Gulf Stream, aiding navigation and trade. Population studies. He analyzed demographic data, advocating for social planning and economic foresight. Oceanography. His observations of tides, currents, and coastal geography contributed to early scientific understanding of marine systems. Franklin believed that observation, experimentation, and reasoning were the keys to knowledge. He approached problems methodically, testing hypotheses and recording results with meticulous attention. He also valued practicality over prestige, often inventing devices to solve real-world problems rather than for fame or profit. His approach to science combined curiosity, empathy, and pragmatism, embodying the Enlightenment ideals of progress through knowledge. Franklin's inventions continue to influence modern life. The lightning rod protects buildings worldwide. Bifocals improve vision for millions. And his scientific terminology remains foundational in the study of electricity beyond tools and devices. Franklin's scientific philosophy, curiosity, tempered by practicality, observation combined with experimentations, set a standard for generations of inventors, engineers, and scientists. He demonstrated that intellectual curiosity, applied creatively, could change the world, making him not just a revolutionary leader, but also a pioneer of human knowledge. Benjamin Franklin's scientific and inventive achievements underscore a core principle of his life: the pursuit of knowledge for the betterment of humanity. His experiments, inventions, and insights reveal a man whose curiosity knew no bounds, whose intellect was both playful and profound, and whose legacy in science endures as strongly as his contributions to politics and society.